Miss Weston, Mr. Aldridge will see you now. I stood in the lobby of Aldridge Development Corporation with my portfolio pressed against my chest like armor. The building was all glass and steel, 42 floors of achievement rising above the Boston skyline. I had told myself this was just a consulting meeting. A simple contract discussion with the architecture team. In and out in an hour, and I would never have to think about this place again. Then I saw the roster on the reception desk. Rising Leaders Internship Program, Summer 2024. 12 names arranged in alphabetical order on cream-colored paper. And there, third from the top, printed in the same neat font as all the others. Caleb Weston, age 23. My son. My 23-year-old son was in an internship program at his father's company. A father who had no idea he existed. The elevator chimed behind me. I turned slowly, already knowing what I would see, already feeling my blood turn to ice in my veins. The glass elevator descended from the upper floors, and inside it stood Vincent Aldridge surrounded by a small group of young professionals in business attire. The interns. He was laughing at something one of them had said, his silver-streaked dark hair catching the light, his posture still commanding even in a moment of casual warmth. And beside him, close enough that their shoulders nearly touched, stood Caleb. My son. His son. Their resemblance so obvious it made my chest hurt. Vincent's hand rested on Caleb's shoulder as he made a point about something. The gesture was casual, paternal, proud. The way a father touches a son when he wants to convey approval. Except Vincent did not know that was what he was doing. The elevator doors opened. The group spilled into the lobby, still talking and laughing, and I stood frozen beside the reception desk watching 23 years of carefully maintained distance collapse in a single moment. Caleb looked up and saw me. His expression flickered through surprise, then confusion, then a careful blankness that told me he understood exactly how dangerous this situation was. Vincent followed his gaze. Our eyes met across the marble lobby, and I watched recognition move through his features. Confusion first, then surprise, then something I could not name that flickered and disappeared behind professional composure. 23 years. 23 years since I had looked into those eyes. Miss Weston. The receptionist's voice cut through the moment. Mr. Aldridge's assistant will escort you to the conference room. I forced myself to breathe. Forced myself to nod. Forced myself to look away from the man I had once loved and the son we had made together, standing side by side in a lobby full of people who had no idea what they were witnessing. Welcome back to another powerful story, my beloved listeners. Kindly tell where you are watching from and what time it is where you are at. If you are new here, prepare for a story of betrayal, unexpected love, and what truly makes a family. Drop everything and listen closely. This tale of heartbreak and redemption might just change how you view love and family forever. The conference room was on the 34th floor, all windows and polished wood and the kind of understated wealth that announced itself through quality rather than flash. I sat at the long table with 3 members of the architecture team, discussing specifications for a mixed-use development project that Aldridge Corporation had contracted my firm to consult on. I heard nothing they said. I nodded in the right places. I made notes I would not remember taking. The entire time, my mind was in that lobby, watching my son and his father laugh together like old friends. 3 months. According to the program materials I had glimpsed on the reception desk, the internship ran from June through August. 3 months of Caleb working in this building, learning from these people, spending time with a father who did not know he was a father. This was my nightmare made flesh. This was exactly what I had spent 23 years ensuring would never happen. The conference room door opened. I looked up, and my heart stopped. Vincent Aldridge stepped inside with a tablet in his hand and an expression of polite professionalism that did not reach his eyes. Sorry to interrupt. I need to borrow Miss Weston for a moment. Building owner's prerogative. The architecture team exchanged glances but did not argue. One did not argue with the man whose name was on the building. Of course, Mr. Aldridge. Vincent held the door open, waiting. I gathered my portfolio with hands that refused to stay steady and walked past him into the hallway. He led me to a small alcove near the elevators, away from the flow of foot traffic, and then he turned to face me with an expression I could not read. 23 years. Margot. His voice was the same. Deeper now, roughened by time, but the same cadence I remembered from nights spent talking until dawn in his apartment near the harbor. Yes. It has been a long time. I did not know you were the Western Consulting we contracted. The paperwork just said M. Western. I did not know until last week. My partner handles most of the client intake. By the time I realized, it seemed easier to just do the job rather than explain why I could not. Vincent studied my face with an intensity that made me feel exposed in ways I had not felt in decades. You look good. So do you. Silence stretched between us. 23 years of unspoken words filling the space. Why did you leave, Margot? Vincent's voice was quiet, carefully controlled. All those years ago. Why did you just disappear? I could not stay. That is not an answer. It is the only one I have. He watched me for a long moment, and I could see him deciding whether to push. Whether to demand the explanation he had deserved for more than 2 decades. Whether to finally have the conversation we had never had. A young woman appeared around the corner. Mr. Aldridge, the board call is starting in 5 minutes. Thank you, Diana. Vincent turned back to me, and the moment passed. The personal retreated behind the professional, and he became again what he had built himself into. A billionaire CEO. A man of consequence. Someone who did not have time for old wounds. We should have dinner. Catch up properly. I do not think that is a good idea. Why not? Because some doors are better left closed. I walked back toward the conference room before he could respond. My hands were shaking. My heart was pounding against my ribs like it wanted to escape. In the lobby, I had seen Caleb's face when he realized I was there. The careful blankness, the controlled surprise. He had expected this might happen eventually. We both had. We had just hoped it would not. To understand what that moment in the lobby meant, I need to take you back. Not 3 months, but 23 years. To the spring when I was 28 years old and believed that love could survive anything. I met Vincent Aldridge at a construction site in South Boston. He was 31, already being groomed to take over his father's development company. I was a junior architect at a mid-sized firm, assigned to design affordable housing units for a community development project. The kind of project that most developers ignored because the profit margins were thin and the community oversight was endless. Vincent's company had taken it on anyway. He believed, even then, that development should serve communities rather than simply exploit them. Our first conversation happened in a half-finished building that smelled of sawdust and possibility. He was reviewing blueprints with his site manager when I arrived to inspect the framing work. He looked up, saw me with my hard hat and clipboard, and smiled. You must be the architect who has been sending my team strongly worded emails about load-bearing modifications. You must be the developer who keeps approving changes without consulting the design team. He laughed. It was the kind of laugh that transformed his face from handsome to beautiful, crinkling the corners of his eyes and erasing the careful composure he usually maintained. Fair point. Can I buy you coffee to apologize? That coffee became dinner. Dinner became weekends. Weekends became something I had never experienced before, an intimacy so complete it frightened me even as I craved it. Vincent was not like other men I had dated. He listened when I spoke. He remembered details I mentioned in passing and circled back to them weeks later. He argued with me about architecture and politics and the future of cities, not to win but because he genuinely wanted to understand how I thought. By summer, I was in love with him. By fall, we were talking about the future as though it belonged to both of us. His apartment overlooked the harbor. We would sit on his balcony with wine and watch the lights of ships moving in the darkness, and he would talk about the company he was building, the legacy he wanted to create, the difference he wanted to make. And I believed him. I believed we would make that difference together. I did not know about his father's plans until it was almost too late. Lawrence Aldridge was the kind of man who believed that family was destiny and that legacy was the only thing that mattered. He had built Aldridge Development from nothing, and he expected his son to not merely continue it but to expand it into something generational. He also expected his son to marry strategically. The Crane family owned one of the largest construction firms on the East Coast. A merger between their company and Aldridge Development would create something unprecedented. And Lawrence had decided that the merger would be sealed the old-fashioned way. Through marriage. I found out on a Thursday evening in October. I had gone to Vincent's office to surprise him with dinner, and I heard raised voices through his closed door. You do not get to make this choice, Vincent. His father's voice was cold and final. Helena Crane is perfect for this family. Her father is willing to combine our operations. Do you understand what that means? I understand that you are trying to arrange my marriage like we are living in the 18th century. I am trying to secure this company's future. Your future. What has that woman given you except distraction? That woman is none of your business. Everything is my business, Vincent. Everything you are is because of what I built. And if you throw that away for some architect you met at a job site, you will have nothing. No company. No inheritance. No family name worth carrying. You will be no one. The silence that followed was worse than the shouting. She is not a distraction. Vincent's voice was quieter now, but I could hear the strain in it. She is the best thing that has ever happened to me. Then prove it. Walk away from all of this. Give up everything I have spent my life building, and go be happy with your little architect in some apartment you can barely afford. More silence. I pressed my hand against the wall, trying to steady myself. I am giving you until December. Lawrence's voice had the tone of a man issuing a final verdict. Figure out what matters more. This family or that woman. I did not stay to hear Vincent's response. I left the building, walked to the harbor, and sat on a bench until the cold drove me home. That night, I made the decision that would define the next 23 years of my life. Vincent called me the next morning, but I did not answer. He came to my apartment that evening, worried because I had not responded to any of his messages. What is wrong? He reached for me in my doorway, and I stepped back. Margot, what happened? I heard you. With your father. Yesterday. His face changed. The color drained from his cheeks, and I watched him understand what I was about to do. Margot, that does not matter. What he said, what he wants, none of it matters. I choose you. You cannot choose me. I can. I will. I will walk away from all of it. And then what? I forced myself to meet his eyes, to hold steady when every part of me wanted to collapse into his arms. You build the company from scratch while your father freezes you out. You spend years rebuilding what he will destroy just to punish you. And somewhere along the way, you start to resent me for being the reason you lost everything. That would never happen. You do not know that. I know I love you. I love you too. That is why I am doing this. I did not let him argue. I did not give him the chance to convince me, because I knew he could. I knew that if he held me and told me we would figure it out together, I would believe him. And then we would both drown in the wreckage of what his father would do to punish him for choosing wrong. I was 28 years old. I believed I was being brave. I believed I was protecting him from having to make an impossible choice. I did not know I was also protecting something else. Something I would not discover for another 6 weeks. By then, I was already in Philadelphia. I had taken a job with a small firm that specialized in community development projects. I was living in a studio apartment with boxes I had not yet unpacked, trying to convince myself that the ache in my chest would eventually fade. The nausea started in late November. I blamed stress. I blamed the bad diner food I had been eating because I could not bring myself to cook. I blamed everything except the obvious. The pregnancy test was positive on a Tuesday morning. I sat on the bathroom floor of my studio apartment and stared at the little plus sign until my vision blurred. I thought about calling Vincent. I thought about it every day for weeks. But by then, the society pages had already announced his engagement. Vincent Aldridge and Helena Crane, uniting two of Boston's most prominent development families. The photo showed them at a charity gala, Helena's hand on his arm, Vincent's smile not quite reaching his eyes. He had done what his father demanded. He had made the choice I had not let him make. And I was pregnant with his child. I told myself I was protecting everyone. Vincent from the complication of a child with a woman who was not his wife. The baby from being caught in the middle of a family war. Myself from watching the man I loved resent the burden I had become. I told myself a lot of things in those early months. Most of them were lies dressed up as wisdom. Caleb was born in August, 8 months after I left Boston. I named him for my grandfather, a man who had believed in building things that lasted. I held my son in the hospital room and promised him that I would give him everything he needed, even if I could not give him his father. And for 23 years, I kept that promise. I raised Caleb alone in Philadelphia, then in Chicago, then finally in Seattle, moving whenever opportunity called or whenever I felt the need for distance from the life I had left behind. I built a career as an architectural consultant, started my own firm with a partner I trusted, created something I was proud of. Caleb grew into everything I could have hoped for. Brilliant and driven, with his father's intensity and what I hoped was my common sense. He studied urban planning and architecture in college, fascinated by the same questions that had drawn me to the field. How do buildings shape communities? How does design influence the way people live? He asked about his father sometimes. Especially when he was young, when his classmates would talk about their dads and he would come home with questions I could not answer honestly. What was he like? He was smart, passionate about his work. He wanted to make a difference in the world. Why did you leave him? Because sometimes love is not enough to make things work. Because we wanted different things. Because it was complicated in ways I cannot explain. Will I ever meet him? Maybe someday. When you are older. Someday kept getting pushed further into the future. When he was 10. When he was 15. When he finished high school. When he graduated from college. I kept waiting for the right moment to tell him the truth, and the right moment never came. Then, 3 months ago, Caleb sat me down in my Seattle living room with an expression I recognized. The look he got when he had figured something out and was not sure how I would react. "Mom, I need to show you something." He held out his phone. On the screen was a photograph from a charity gala, dated 15 years earlier. Vincent Aldridge accepting an award for community development. He was older than the last photo I had seen of him, grey threading through his dark hair, but still unmistakably himself. I know who my father is. My heart stopped. Caleb, how did you? I have known for months. I found some old photos in your files when I was looking for your tax documents. You and him at an architecture event. Once I had a face, it was not hard to find a name. I could not speak. 23 years of careful silence, undone by a careless filing system. Why did you not tell me? His voice was not angry, just tired. Sad. All these years, Mom. Why? Because I did not know how. Because the longer I waited, the harder it became. Because every year that passed made the truth feel more like a betrayal than an explanation. Caleb was quiet for a long moment, looking at the photo on his phone. I applied for his internship program. What? The Rising Leaders program at Aldridge Development. I applied 3 months ago. I just found out I was accepted. Caleb, you cannot. Why not? It is the best program in the country for what I want to do. And yes, I know he is my father. But he does not know I am his son. Maybe that is okay for now. I do not understand. He looked at me with an expression that was far too old for his 23 years. I want to meet him. I want to know who he is, what kind of person he is, whether he is someone I would be proud to call my father. But I want to do it on my own terms. Not as the secret son who showed up to complicate his life. As someone he can get to know without the pressure of what we are to each other. That is manipulative. That is strategic. There is a difference. He sounded so much like Vincent in that moment that it made my chest hurt. And if he figures it out, if he sees you and puts the pieces together, then we will deal with it. But Mom, I have spent my whole life wondering about him. This is my chance to find out for myself who he really is. I should have said no. I should have told him it was too dangerous, too complicated, too likely to end in disaster. Instead, I agreed. Because I looked at my son, this brilliant young man I had raised alone for 23 years, and I saw how much he needed this. How much he deserved to know where he came from. And because some part of me wanted to see Vincent again too, even if I would never admit it. So Caleb went to Boston for the summer. And I went back to my life in Seattle, trying to pretend that everything was normal, that my son was not spending his days in the shadow of a man who did not know he had fathered him. Caleb called me every week with updates. The program was incredible, challenging and immersive, exactly the kind of experience he had hoped for. The other interns were talented and driven. The work was meaningful. And Vincent Aldridge was everything Caleb had hoped he would be. He is brilliant, Mom. The way he thinks about development, about community impact, about building things that matter. He actually listens to our ideas. He remembers what we say and circles back to it weeks later. I close my eyes, remembering Vincent doing exactly that with me, 23 years ago. Does he ever mention me? No. Should he? No. I suppose not. The weeks passed. Caleb's updates became more detailed, more enthusiastic, more filled with admiration for a man he could not yet call father. And then, in the third week of July, I received an email from Aldridge Development's contracts department. They wanted my firm to consult on a mixed-use development project. A significant contract, the kind that could fund our operations for a year. My partner, Claire, was thrilled. Margot, this is huge. The Aldridge name alone will bring us more clients than we can handle. I know. But Claire, there is something I need to tell you about my history with that company. I told her everything. About Vincent. About Caleb. About the secret I had been keeping for 23 years. She listened without interrupting, her expression shifting from surprise to concern to something that looked like fear. Margot, you cannot take this contract. If Vincent sees you, if he realizes Caleb is your son, he will not put it together. Why would he? He has no reason to suspect. People are not blind. If Caleb looks anything like his father, he does. But Vincent is not looking for a son. He does not know one exists. As long as I keep my distance, as long as Caleb and I are never in the same place at the same time. That is exactly when things go wrong. When you think you have every angle covered. She was right, of course. She was always right about these things. But the contract was too important to turn down without explanation, and explaining would mean more questions, more scrutiny, more risk of the truth coming out before we were ready. So I took the meeting. I told myself it would be simple. One consultation, maybe two. I would stay in my lane, keep things professional, and be back in Seattle before anyone could connect the dots. I did not count on seeing the internship roster in the lobby. I did not count on watching my son descend in an elevator with his hand on his father's shoulder. I did not count on Vincent Aldridge looking at me across a marble floor and saying my name like it was a wound that had never healed. The consulting contract kept me in Boston longer than I had planned. What should have been a single meeting stretched into a week of site visits and design reviews and endless conference calls with teams in 3 different time zones. I stayed at a hotel near the harbor, walking the same streets Vincent and I had walked 23 years ago, trying not to see ghosts around every corner. Caleb and I established careful protocols. We would not acknowledge each other at the office. We would not be seen leaving together or arriving together. If we needed to talk, we would do it by phone, late at night when no one was listening. It was exhausting. But it was working. Mom, you have to see what we are building. Caleb's voice on the phone was bright with enthusiasm. It was 11 at night, and I was sitting on my hotel bed with a glass of wine I was not drinking, listening to my son describe his days in the only way we could safely communicate. Tell me. We are redesigning a waterfront district. Abandoned warehouses, old shipping terminals. Vincent wants to turn it into mixed-income housing with community spaces and local business incubators. Not the usual luxury development that prices out everyone who actually lives there. That sounds exactly like him. You knew him. What was he like back then? I paused, trying to find the right words. Careful words, honest without revealing too much. He was passionate. Idealistic, in the best way. He believed that business could be a force for good if the people running it had the right values. He still believes that. You can see it in how he makes decisions. He turns down projects all the time because they do not meet his standards. His board hates it. I smiled despite myself. That sounds like him too. Mom. Caleb's voice shifted, became more serious. He looks at me sometimes. Like he is trying to figure something out. Like I remind him of someone. My heart rate spiked. What do you mean? I do not know exactly. He will ask me questions about my background, my family, where I am from, who raised me. And when I answer, he gets this expression. Like the puzzle pieces do not quite fit. What do you tell him? The truth. That I was raised by a single mother in Seattle. That my father was someone from before, someone I never knew. That architecture and development are in my blood, even though I could not explain exactly how. Silence on the line. I could hear Caleb thinking, choosing his next words. Do you think he suspects? I do not know. Maybe. Or maybe he is just getting to know you the way he gets to know all his interns. Maybe. But neither of us believed that. The invitation came in the 4th week. Vincent's assistant called my hotel room at 8 in the morning, her tone brisk and professional. Mr. Aldridge would like to discuss some design concerns with the waterfront project. He has time this evening at 7. Would dinner work for you? Dinner. I repeated the word like it was a foreign concept. He said it would give you both time to talk without the usual office interruptions. There is a restaurant he uses for client meetings. Quiet, private. I will send the details. I should have refused. I should have invented another commitment, an early flight, a family emergency. Instead, I said yes. The restaurant was exactly the kind of place Vincent had always preferred. Understated elegance, impeccable service, tables spaced far enough apart that conversations remained private. I arrived 10 minutes early and ordered a glass of wine I did not drink. Vincent arrived precisely at 7, dressed in a suit that probably cost more than my first car, looking like a man who had spent decades becoming the person his circumstances required him to be. Margot. He sat across from me, and for a moment neither of us spoke. Thank you for coming. Your assistant made it sound like a business meeting. Did she? A hint of a smile crossed his face. I may have given her that impression. Why? Because I wanted to see you. And I thought you might say no if I asked directly. I would have. I know. That is why I did not ask directly. The waiter appeared, recited specials, took orders. I barely heard any of it. My entire awareness was focused on the man across the table, this stranger who was also the person I had known better than anyone, once. You disappeared. Vincent's voice was quiet, controlled. 23 years ago. You said you could not stay, and then you were gone. No forwarding address. No phone number that worked. Nothing. I changed everything. Made myself hard to find. Why? Because I knew if you looked for me, you would find me. And if you found me, I would go back. And if I went back, I would ruin everything you had sacrificed for. Vincent was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice had an edge I did not recognize. I did look for you. For 2 years. I hired investigators, followed every lead, called every architectural firm in every city you might have gone to. You were very thorough about disappearing. I did not know that. Because you did not give me the chance to tell you. You made a decision that affected both of us, and then you removed yourself from the consequences. The accusation in his voice was quiet but unmistakable. You married Helena. I said it before I could stop myself. 3 months after I left. You did what your father wanted. I did what you told me there was no alternative to. Vincent's eyes met mine across the table. You left because you thought I would resent you for making me choose. So I did not have a choice to make anymore. You made it for me. The words hit like stones. Vincent, I was trying to protect you. I did not need your protection, Margot. I needed you to trust me. To let me fight for us instead of deciding the fight was not worth having. And if you had lost, if your father had destroyed everything, just like he threatened, then at least I would have known I tried. At least I would not have spent 23 years wondering what my life would have looked like if you had stayed. The waiter brought our food. Neither of us touched it. You got divorced. I said it carefully, uncertain if the topic was welcome. Yes. Helena and I were never right for each other. We both knew it from the beginning, but we did what our families expected. It lasted 5 years before we admitted we were making each other miserable. I am sorry. For what? For my failed marriage, or for leaving me to have it in the first place? I did not have an answer to that. What about you? Vincent's voice shifted, became more curious than accusatory. 23 years. Did you marry? Have a family? The question I had known was coming. The question I still did not know how to answer. I never married. But he heard the hesitation. Of course he did. He had always been able to read me better than anyone. Margot. His voice was gentle now. What are you not telling me? I looked at this man across the table, this stranger who was also the love of my life, and I felt 23 years of secrets pressing against my chest like stones. Vincent, there are things I need to tell you. Things that will change everything. Then tell me. The words were on my tongue. The truth was right there, ready to finally be spoken. And then his phone rang. Vincent glanced at the screen and his expression shifted. I am sorry, I have to take this. His voice was tense, urgent. There is an emergency at one of our sites. He stood, already moving toward the door, the moment lost. Tomorrow. Whatever you need to tell me, we will talk tomorrow. He was gone before I could respond. I sat alone at the table for a long time, my food untouched, my wine warming in the glass. Tomorrow. I had one more day to figure out how to tell him the truth. One more day to find the right words for a revelation that would destroy everything. But tomorrow would bring its own complications. And the truth would slip away again, like water through my fingers, always close and never quite within reach. The emergency at Vincent's construction site kept him occupied for 3 days. A structural issue in one of the buildings, something that required his personal attention and a team of engineers working around the clock. I heard updates from the project team during our consulting meetings, watched the stress lines deepen around Vincent's eyes when he appeared briefly at the office, but we did not speak again. Caleb continued to thrive. He called me every night with updates, his voice bright with the particular joy of someone doing exactly what they were meant to do. Vincent had promoted him to lead a small analysis project. He was being treated differently than the other interns, given more responsibility, more access, more trust. I think he knows something, Mom. Caleb said it on a Thursday night, his voice quiet and thoughtful. Not the specifics, but something. He looks at me sometimes like he is waiting for me to tell him a secret. Maybe you should. Not yet. We agreed. The end of the program. We tell him together. What if he figures it out before then? Then we deal with it. But I want him to know me first. The real me. Not just the son who showed up to complicate his life. I understood what Caleb wanted. I understood why it mattered. But with every passing day, the secret grew heavier, more dangerous. More like a bomb waiting to detonate. In the 5th week of the program, Vincent invited the interns to a company event. A charity gala for affordable housing initiatives, the kind of thing that attracted Boston's elite and generated significant publicity for whatever cause they were pretending to care about. Caleb texted me that morning. He wants us all there. Full intern cohort. Photo opportunities with the CEO. I was supposed to be back in Seattle by then. My consulting contract had technically concluded, the deliverables submitted, the final meetings complete. There was no reason for me to still be in Boston. But I had not left. I told myself it was because of loose ends with the project. Follow-up questions that might arise. The kind of vague excuses that sound reasonable if you do not examine them too closely. The truth was simpler and more pathetic. I stayed because I could not bring myself to go. Because every day I remained was another day I might see Vincent. Another day I might find the courage to tell him the truth. Another day of postponing the reckoning I knew was coming. The gala was at a historic hotel downtown. Crystal chandeliers, champagne flutes, men in tuxedos and women in gowns that cost more than most people's monthly rent. I had not planned to attend. I had specifically decided not to attend. Then Claire called from Seattle. You have to be there. Absolutely not. Margot, listen to me. There is a developer at that event who has been trying to get a meeting with you for 6 months. If you can get 15 minutes with him at this gala, it could mean a contract worth twice what we made from Aldridge. I cannot be seen there. Caleb will be there. If anyone connects us. You are a professional attending a professional event. He is an intern doing intern things. Why would anyone think twice about it? Because I will be in the same room as both of them. Vincent and Caleb. Together. Then stay on opposite sides of the room. Margot, this is business. You have spent 23 years avoiding this man. You can spend one evening in the same building as him without everything falling apart. She did not understand. She could not understand. But she was also right about the contract. We needed it. I had not built a business by letting fear dictate my decisions. So I bought a dress. I put on makeup I rarely wore. I arrived at the gala 2 hours after it started, hoping the crowd would be thick enough to provide cover. The ballroom was enormous, packed with hundreds of people in formal attire, all of them performing the particular kind of wealth that old Boston money perfected. I found the developer Claire had mentioned, had the conversation she had wanted me to have, secured a follow-up meeting that would probably generate exactly the opportunity she had promised. And then I saw them. Vincent stood near the stage with a cluster of board members and donors, looking exactly like what he was. The most powerful person in the room, commanding attention without demanding it. The interns were arranged nearby in a semi-formal group, clearly serving as props for the photo opportunities Caleb had mentioned. Caleb stood at the edge of the group. He was watching Vincent with an expression I recognized. The careful attention of someone studying a subject they needed to understand. The hungry observation of someone looking at a future they desperately wanted. The longing of a son who has never known his father. And as I watched, Vincent turned. His eyes swept the room, passed over the crowd, and landed on me. I saw the recognition. The surprise. The shift in his expression from professional Polish to something rawer, more genuine. He excused himself from the board members. He started walking toward me. And I realized, with a clarity that felt like ice water down my spine, that there was no escape. 23 years of running had led me here, to a ballroom in Boston, watching the man I had loved crossing the distance between us. Margot. He stopped a few feet away, close enough that I could smell his cologne. You came. Business opportunity. A developer I needed to meet. Is that the only reason? What other reason would there be? He studied my face with the intensity one remembered from 2 decades ago. The way he looked at me when he was trying to understand something important. We never finished our conversation. The other night, at dinner, you said there were things you needed to tell me. This is not the place for that conversation. Then where? When? Because I have waited 23 years, Margot, and I am tired of waiting. Behind him, I could see Caleb watching us. His expression was careful, controlled, but I knew him well enough to see the fear underneath. The awareness that everything could unravel in this moment. Tomorrow. I said it quickly, before I could change my mind. Come to my hotel. 10 o'clock. I will tell you everything. Vincent's eyes searched mine for a long moment. Then he nodded. Tomorrow. He returned to the board members. I found the nearest exit and left the gala with my heart pounding so hard I could barely breathe. I did not sleep that night. I sat in my hotel room going over the words in my head. The explanation. The apology. The truth I had hidden for 23 years. I imagined Vincent's reaction. The shock. The anger. The betrayal he would rightfully feel. I imagined him meeting Caleb again, this time with full knowledge. Seeing his son for the first time. I imagined the aftermath. The questions. The recriminations. The slow, painful work of building something from wreckage. At 3 in the morning, Caleb texted me. Are you going to tell him? Yes. Tomorrow morning. A long pause. Then. Good. It is time. I know. Mom. Whatever happens. I do not regret it. Any of it. These 3 months, getting to know him. It was worth it. I stared at the text for a long time, trying to find the right response. I love you, Caleb. I finally wrote. No matter what happens. I love you. I know. And I know you did what you thought was right, even if it was not. I forgive you for that, Mom. I hope he can too. I set the phone down and cried for the first time in months. Years. Maybe. All the fear and guilt and love I had been holding back for 23 years, finally released. At 6 in the morning, I showered and dressed and ordered coffee I did not drink. At 8, I started pacing. At 9, I checked my phone every 30 seconds, waiting for Vincent to cancel. He did not cancel. At exactly 10 o'clock, there was a knock on my hotel room door. I opened it to find Vincent standing in the hallway, wearing casual clothes I had never seen on him. No suit, no tie. Just a man in jeans and a sweater, looking more vulnerable than I had ever seen him look. May I come in? I stepped aside. He entered, looked around the room, and then turned to face me. You wanted to tell me something. Yes. Then tell me. I took a breath. 23 years of silence, and the time for breaking it had finally arrived. When I left Boston, I did not know I was pregnant. The words hung in the air between us. Vincent's expression shifted. Confusion first, then comprehension, then something I could not name that darkened his features and made him look suddenly older. Pregnant. I found out 6 weeks after I moved to Philadelphia. By then, you were already engaged to Helena. The announcement was in all the papers. He was silent. I forced myself to continue. I thought about telling you. I picked up the phone 100 times. But you had just made this enormous sacrifice to save your company, and I could not bear to complicate that. I could not bear to be the reason everything fell apart. So you decided. His voice was strange. Quiet. You decided for both of us. Again. I did not know what else to do. What happened? To the... He could not seem to finish the sentence. To the pregnancy. I kept it. Him. I kept him. The word him changed something in Vincent's face. A shift from abstract to specific. You have a son. We have a son. The correction landed like a blow. I watched Vincent process it, watched the understanding move through his features. How old? 23. Where? Here. In Boston. I do not understand. And then I saw it happen. I saw the puzzle pieces clicking together in his mind. The questions. The resemblance. The feeling he could not explain. His face went pale. The intern. He said it slowly, like the words were being dragged out of him. The one I have been mentoring. The young man who reminds me of myself, who has an architect's mind, who looks at buildings the way I look at them. His name is Caleb. Vincent sat down heavily on the edge of the bed. His hands were shaking. 3 months. He said it to himself more than to me. 3 months I have been working with him. Teaching him. Proud of him. And he is. Your son. Our son. Silence filled the room. I stood by the window, afraid to move, afraid to speak, afraid of what would come next. When Vincent finally looked up, his eyes were wet. Why? The single word held everything. All the pain, all the confusion, all the years of absence. Why did you not tell me? I told him the truth. All of it. The fear that he would resent me. The certainty that his father would use the pregnancy to destroy him. The way the secret had grown heavier with every passing year until telling it felt impossible. I told him about raising Caleb alone. About the questions Caleb had asked and the answers I could not give. About the day Caleb found the photograph and figured out the truth on his own. I told him about Caleb's plan. To join the internship. To know his father before his father knew him. To be seen as a person, not an obligation. And when I finished, Vincent was crying. I watched the man I had loved, the man I had protected, the man I had lied to for 23 years, weep for everything he had lost. And I understood, finally, the magnitude of what I had done. I thought I was saving him. But I was only saving myself from the pain of watching him choose. And in doing that, I had taken something from him that could never be returned. 23 years. Vincent's voice was rough, broken. I have a son who is 23 years old. Who spent his childhood without me. Who grew up wondering why his father was not there. I am sorry. It was inadequate. Everything I could say would be inadequate. I am so sorry. He looked at me then, and I saw the anger I had been expecting. But I also saw something else. Grief. Yes. Betrayal. Certainly. But underneath it all, something that might have been hope. I want to meet him. Vincent said it quietly. Properly. Not as his mentor. As his father. He wants that too. He has been waiting for you to know. He knew. Vincent's voice cracked. All 3 months, he knew who I was, and he said nothing. He wanted you to know him first. The real him. Not just the secret that showed up to complicate your life. Vincent was silent for a long moment. Then he stood, walked to the window, looked out at the city we had both loved once. Tonight. He said it without turning around. I want to see him tonight. Both of you. Together. Are you sure you are ready for that? No. He turned to face me, and I saw the raw honesty in his expression. I am not ready for any of this. But I have waited 23 years without knowing I was waiting. I am not waiting anymore. He left without saying goodbye. I watched the door close behind him and felt something shift in my chest. A loosening. A release. 23 years of silence, and the truth was finally spoken. Now came the hard part. That evening, I dressed carefully. A simple dress, professional but not formal. The kind of thing you wear when you do not know what kind of occasion you are attending. Caleb arrived at my hotel room at 6, wearing a suit I had never seen before. You look nice. He did not smile. Is he angry? He is everything. Angry, sad, confused, hopeful. All of it at once. Caleb nodded slowly. That makes sense. Are you ready for this? No. But I have been ready my whole life. We took a car to the address Vincent had texted. A house in the Back Bay, old money architecture with modern updates. The kind of place that cost more than most people made in a lifetime. Vincent answered the door himself. No butler, no assistant. Just a man in his 50s, opening his front door to meet his son for the first time. Caleb. He said the name carefully, like he was testing how it felt in his mouth. Come in. Both of you. We entered a living room that was elegant and impersonal, the kind of space designed by decorators rather than inhabited by people. Vincent gestured to a seating area, and we arranged ourselves on opposite ends of a long sofa. He remained standing, looking at Caleb, looking at me, looking at the evidence of what we had made together and kept apart. I do not know where to start. Vincent's voice was quiet. I have had 24 hours to process something that has been true for 23 years, and I still do not know what to say. You do not have to say anything. Caleb's voice was steady, calmer than I had expected. I just wanted you to know me. The real me. Before all the complicated stuff got in the way. You succeeded at that. Vincent sat down in an armchair across from us. 3 months of watching you work. Watching you think. Feeling this connection I could not explain. Now I understand what it was. Are you angry? Caleb asked it directly, the way he asked everything. Yes. At your mother. At myself for not seeing it sooner. At the universe for letting this happen this way. He paused. But not at you. Never at you. Good. Caleb's expression softened slightly. Because I have spent my whole life wondering about you. And these 3 months were the best months of my life. I do not want to regret them. Vincent's eyes met mine across the room. I saw the anger still burning there, but also something else. An acknowledgement that whatever had happened between us, we had created this remarkable young man together. You did well. He said it quietly, not quite a compliment, not quite an accusation. Raising him. Whatever else happened, you did that well. I did my best. It was enough. We talked for hours that night. Vincent asked questions about Caleb's childhood, his interests, his dreams for the future. Caleb answered honestly, sometimes with humor, sometimes with the quiet intensity he had inherited from his father. I sat between them, watching two people who shared blood and bone discover that they also shared something deeper. A way of seeing the world. A passion for building things that mattered. A stubbornness that refused to accept easy answers. By midnight, we had covered 23 years of history. Not everything, not nearly, but enough to begin. I want you to stay. Vincent said it to Caleb as we were leaving. In Boston. After the internship ends. There is a position at the company. Entry level, but with real responsibility. You have earned it. Caleb looked at me, then back at his father. I would like that. And Margot. Vincent turned to me, and I felt the weight of everything unsaid between us. We need to talk. Properly. About what happens now. I know. Not tonight. I am still too angry tonight. But soon. Soon. We left the house and walked to the car in silence. Caleb did not speak until we were halfway back to the hotel. Mom. Yes. Thank you. For telling him. I know it was hard. I should have told him 23 years ago. Maybe. But you told him now. That is what matters. I looked at my son, this man I had raised alone, and I felt something I had not felt in a very long time. Not peace, exactly, but the possibility of it. He is going to be a good father. Caleb said it quietly. I can tell. He wants this. He wants me. He always would have wanted you. I just did not trust him enough to find out. And now you do. I thought about Vincent's face when I told him the truth. The shock. The grief. The anger that was righteous and deserved. But also the hope. The desperate, hungry hope of a man who had just discovered he had a son. Now I do. That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. The truth was out. The secret was no longer mine to carry. But the hard part was not over. It was only beginning. Because telling the truth is just the first step. What comes after, the rebuilding, the reconciliation, the long slow work of becoming a family, that is where the real challenge lies. And as I lay in my hotel room, staring at the ceiling, I knew that the conversation Vincent wanted to have would be the hardest of my life. He was still angry. He had every right to be. 23 years was a long time to keep a child from its father. 23 years was a long time to let fear make your choices for you. I did not know if he could forgive me. I did not know if I deserved forgiveness. But for the first time in 23 years, I was willing to find out. The week after the revelation was the quietest of my life. Vincent and I did not speak. Not because he refused to take my calls, but because there were no calls to take. No texts. No emails. Nothing but the vast, heavy silence of a man processing something too enormous for words. Caleb became the bridge between us, carrying information back and forth like a diplomat navigating hostile territories. He wants to have lunch with me tomorrow. Just the two of us. That is good. That is what you wanted. He asked about my childhood again. What sports I played. What books I liked. He is trying to fill in 23 years in a week. That is going to take time. I know. Caleb paused on the phone, and I could hear him choosing his next words carefully. He asked about you too. What did he ask? Whether you were happy. All those years. Whether you had someone. What did you tell him? The truth. That you dated sometimes, but nothing serious. That you threw yourself into work and raising me. That I never saw you truly happy. Not the way people describe happiness. Caleb. It is true, Mom. And he deserved to know. I sat with that for a long moment. My son, telling my secrets to the man I had kept him from. The reversal felt appropriate somehow. A balancing of scales. Is he still angry? Yes. But he is also sad. And confused. And I think, underneath all of it, he is grateful. That I exist. That we found each other. That he finally knows. I closed my eyes against the sting of tears. I am glad you have each other, Mom. Caleb's voice softened. He is going to come around. About you, I mean. He just needs time. Maybe. Or maybe some things cannot be fixed with time. Some things cannot. But this is not one of them. I know him now. I have spent 3 months learning who he is. And he is not the kind of man who holds on to anger forever. He is hurt. But he wants to understand. I hoped Caleb was right. But I had spent 23 years making decisions based on what I thought I knew about Vincent Aldridge, and I had been wrong about almost everything. Maybe I was wrong about this too. The internship program ended on a Friday in late August. There was a ceremony in the Aldridge Development Conference Center. Speeches and certificates and photographs of smiling young professionals who had spent their summer learning from the best. Vincent stood at the podium and talked about the future of the industry, about building things that mattered, about the importance of mentorship and legacy. I watched from the back of the room, uninvited but unable to stay away. Caleb received his certificate with the rest of the cohort. But after the official ceremony ended, Vincent called him back to the stage. I have an additional announcement to make. The room went quiet. Caleb stood beside his father, looking uncertain for the first time since I had known him. Some of you may have noticed that I have given particular attention to one of our interns this summer. I told myself it was because of his exceptional talent, which is true. I told myself it was because he reminded me of myself at that age, which is also true. Vincent paused. I could see his hands trembling slightly at his sides. What I did not know, until very recently, is why those things were true. I did not know that this remarkable young man is my son. A ripple of shock moved through the room. Whispers. Exchanged glances. The particular energy of a crowd processing unexpected information. Caleb Weston is my biological child, whom I did not know existed until 1 week ago. His mother raised him alone for 23 years, and she did an extraordinary job. He is brilliant, principled, and driven by the same values that I have tried to build this company on. Vincent turned to face Caleb directly. I am proud to be your father. I am sorry I was not there for the first 23 years. But I intend to be there for all the years that follow. Caleb's composure finally cracked. I watched my son embrace his father in front of 200 people, watched them hold each other like they were afraid to let go, and I felt something break open in my chest. I left before anyone could see me crying. The public announcement changed things. Suddenly the story was everywhere. Boston society could not stop talking about the billionaire CEO and his secret son. The news covered it with the particular breathlessness reserved for scandals involving wealth and family drama. Opinion pieces debated the ethics of what I had done, strangers on the internet calling me everything from a protective mother to a calculating schemer. I stayed in my hotel room and did not read any of it. Caleb called every day, sometimes twice. The attention is overwhelming. People I have never met want to interview me. Reporters are camped outside my apartment. Are you okay? I think so. Vincent has security people helping. He is being very protective. Of course he is. You are his son. Mom, you should come over. To his house. He has not said you cannot. He has not said I can, either. That is not the same thing. I think right now, it is exactly the same thing. The silence from Vincent continued. 3 weeks of nothing. A month. I extended my hotel stay twice, then finally admitted I could not afford to keep waiting indefinitely. I booked a flight back to Seattle for the following Monday. The night before I was supposed to leave, there was a knock on my hotel room door. I opened it to find Vincent standing in the hallway. May I come in? I stepped aside. He entered, looked around at the suitcase open on the bed, the clothes folded and ready for packing. You are leaving. My life is in Seattle. My business. My partner is running everything alone, and it is not fair to her. So you are just going. I do not know what else to do, Vincent. You have not spoken to me in a month. I have been waiting for you to tell me what you need, and you have told me nothing. He sat down heavily in the desk chair, looking older than I had ever seen him look. I did not know what to say. I still do not know what to say. Every time I try to put words to what I am feeling, they come out wrong. Try anyway. He was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was raw. I am angry. I am so angry that sometimes I cannot breathe from it. 23 years. Margot. I had a son for 23 years, and you let me believe I was alone. You let me build this empire, this legacy, thinking I had no one to leave it to. You watched me marry Helena because I thought there was no reason not to. You knew I was searching for something, and you knew what it was, and you said nothing. I know. Do you? Do you really understand what you took from me? First words. First steps. First day of school. Losing teeth and learning to ride a bike and every single moment that makes a father a father. You took all of it. I was trying to protect you. Stop saying that. His voice cracked. Stop using protection as an excuse for what you did. You were not protecting me. You were protecting yourself from having to watch me make a choice. You were protecting yourself from the possibility that I might choose wrong. That is not protection. That is control. The accusation hit like a physical blow. Worse, because I knew he was right. I was 28 years old. I was pregnant and alone and terrified. Your father was threatening to destroy you, and you were already destroying yourself trying to please him. I did not know what else to do. You could have told me. You could have trusted me to figure it out. And if you had chosen your father's path, If you had married Helena anyway and told me to raise our child alone because that was what the business required, then at least you would have known. At least you would not have spent 23 years wondering. At least Caleb would have known his father made a choice, even if it was the wrong one. Silence filled the room. I sat on the edge of the bed, my packed suitcase between us like a barrier. I do not know if I can forgive you. Vincent said it quietly, without anger now. Just exhaustion. Just the weight of everything he was carrying. I am not asking you to. Then what are you asking? I thought about it. What did I want? What did I have any right to want? I am asking you not to hate me. I am asking you to let me be part of Caleb's life, even if I cannot be part of yours. I am asking for some way forward that does not mean losing everything. Vincent looked at me for a long moment. Then he stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city lights. My father wants to meet him. What? Lawrence. He found out somehow. One of the board members. Probably. He called me yesterday demanding to know if it was true. What did you tell him? The truth. That I have a son. That you kept him from me. That Caleb is brilliant and kind and everything I could have hoped for. How did he react? He wept. I have never seen my father weep. Not once in 55 years. He wept and then he asked to meet his grandson. I did not know what to say. Lawrence Aldridge, the man whose ultimatum had set all of this in motion, wanted to meet the child whose existence was a direct consequence of that ultimatum. Will you let him? That is not entirely my decision. Vincent turned to face me. Caleb should have a say. And frankly, so should you. Me. You raised him. You know him better than anyone. If you think meeting Lawrence would hurt him, I will find a way to prevent it. I shook my head slowly. Caleb is 23 years old. He can make his own decisions about who he wants to know. And if Lawrence wants to be part of his life, if he is genuine about that, then I do not have the right to stand in the way. Even after what he did. The ultimatum. The pressure. Even after that. I have spent 23 years standing in the way of things. I am done doing that. Vincent was quiet for a long moment. Then he did something I did not expect. He sat down beside me on the bed. I am not ready to forgive you. His voice was soft. I do not know if I will ever be ready. But Caleb loves you. And I am trying to love him, which means I have to find some way to coexist with you that does not poison everything else. I can accept coexistence. Good. Because I do not think either of us has another choice. He stood to leave. At the door, he paused. Do not go back to Seattle. Not yet. Why? Because Caleb wants you here. And whatever happens between us, he should not have to choose sides. I will think about it. Think fast. He is having dinner at my house tomorrow night. I would like you to be there. Is that a request or an order? It is the closest thing I can manage to an olive branch. Take it or leave it. He left before I could respond. I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time, staring at my packed suitcase. Then I started unpacking. The dinner at Vincent's house was awkward in ways I had anticipated and ways I had not. Caleb was the one who made it bearable. He talked about his plans for the position Vincent had offered him. He asked questions about the company's early days, the projects that had shaped its philosophy. He treated us both like parents who happened to be in the same room, rather than former lovers navigating a minefield of old wounds. Vincent was polite but distant. He passed dishes and asked about my flight that I had not taken. He avoided eye contact when possible and kept the conversation focused on Caleb. I understood. This was what coexistence looked like, at least in the beginning. Two people occupying the same space without actually connecting. After dinner, Caleb excused himself to take a phone call from one of the other interns. Vincent and I sat in his living room with coffee neither of us was drinking. Lawrence is coming to Boston next week. Vincent broke the silence without preamble. He wants to have lunch with Caleb. How do you feel about that? Complicated. My father and I have not had an easy relationship. What he did to us, the ultimatum, it damaged things between us permanently. But you want Caleb to meet him. I want Caleb to make his own choices. And I want my father to have the chance to be something other than the villain of this story. He is not the villain. I said it quietly. I am. You made choices that hurt people. So did he. So did I. There is enough blame to go around. That felt like the most generous thing Vincent had said to me since the revelation. I held on to it like a lifeline. I am staying in Boston. I said it before I could second-guess myself. Not permanently, but for a while. Claire can manage the Seattle office. I need to be here for whatever comes next. Vincent nodded slowly. Good. Caleb will be glad. And you. He was quiet for a moment. I am not ready to be glad about anything you do. But I am not unhappy about it either. It was not forgiveness. It was not reconciliation. But it was something. Lawrence Aldridge arrived in Boston on a grey Tuesday morning. I was not present for his first meeting with Caleb. That was between grandfather and grandson, a relationship that had nothing to do with me. But Caleb called me afterward, his voice thick with emotion. He cried, "Mom." This old man who built an empire and terrorized everyone around him. He sat across from me and he cried. What did he say? That he was sorry. That the ultimatum he gave Dad all those years ago was the biggest mistake of his life. That if he had not been so obsessed with control, none of this would have happened. Do you believe him? I do not know. Maybe. He seemed genuinely broken up about it. How do you feel? Caleb was quiet for a moment. Strange. Like I have all these family members I did not know existed, and they all have complicated feelings about each other, and somehow I am supposed to navigate all of it. You do not have to navigate anything. You can just exist. Let them figure out their own relationships. Is that what you are doing? Letting Dad figure out his feelings about you. I am giving him space. That is all I can do. He does not hate you, Mom. I know he is angry, but underneath it, he still cares about you. Maybe. Or maybe he just cares about you, and I am the obstacle he has to tolerate. You are not an obstacle. You are my mother. That means something to him, whether he is ready to admit it or not. I wanted to believe that. I was not sure I could. The weeks turned into months. I found an apartment in Boston, a small place near the waterfront where I could watch the harbor lights at night. Claire and I restructured the business to accommodate my relocation. I took on Boston clients, built relationships, tried to create something resembling a normal life. Vincent and I developed a careful routine. We saw each other at events involving Caleb. Dinners at his house. Meetings at the office when my consulting work brought me there. We were cordial. We were civil. We were nothing like what we had been. But sometimes I would catch him watching me across a room. Sometimes our eyes would meet, and I would see something flicker in his expression that was not anger or resentment. Something older. Something that remembered what we had been to each other. I did not know what to do with those moments. So I pretended they did not happen. 3 months after the revelation, Lawrence Aldridge invited me to lunch. I almost declined. What could we possibly have to say to each other? The woman who had hidden his grandchild and the man whose ultimatum had made that hiding seem necessary. But Caleb asked me to go. And I was trying to stop saying no to difficult things. The restaurant Lawrence chose was old Boston money. Dark wood paneling, white tablecloths, waiters who moved like ghosts. He was already seated when I arrived, looking smaller than I remembered. Older. More fragile. Miss Weston. He stood when I approached, a gesture of courtesy that surprised me. Thank you for coming. I was not sure I would. I would not have blamed you if you had not. Please, sit. We ordered. We made small talk about the weather and the city and Caleb's progress at the company. All the safe topics that people use when they are avoiding the conversation they need to have. Finally, Lawrence set down his fork and looked at me directly. I owe you an apology. For what specifically? For the ultimatum I gave my son. For making you feel you had no choice but to leave. For the 23 years of damage that followed. I did not know how to respond. This was not the man I remembered, the cold patriarch who had threatened to destroy everything Vincent had built. I made choices too. I said it carefully. Leaving was my decision. Keeping Caleb a secret was my decision. Decisions made in response to the impossible situation I created. Lawrence's voice was heavy. I wanted to control everything. My son's career. His marriage. His future. I told myself it was for the good of the family, but it was really about my own fear. Fear that he would make choices I could not predict. Fear that he would become something I did not understand. And now I am an old man who spent his life building something I will not be able to enjoy. I have wealth and influence and a legacy that means nothing because I destroyed the only relationships that mattered. You have not destroyed them completely. Vincent is still your son. Caleb wants to know you. Caleb is a miracle I do not deserve. Lawrence's eyes grew wet. He looks at me without judgment. Without resentment. After everything I did, after the cascade of consequences my actions set in motion, he looks at me like I am just a grandfather meeting his grandchild for the first time. That is who he is. I said it softly. He has always been able to see past the surface of things. You raised him well. Vincent says that often. He says you did everything right, even when you were doing it alone. I made mistakes. We all made mistakes. The question is whether we can find a way forward despite them. I looked at this old man, this former villain of my story, and I saw something I had not expected. Genuine remorse. Real desire for reconciliation. The particular humility that comes from confronting your own failures. I am trying, I said finally, to find a way forward. I do not know if Vincent will ever forgive me, but I am trying. He will. Lawrence's voice was certain. My son is many things, but he is not a man who holds on to anger forever. He loved you once. That does not disappear just because there is pain between you. Maybe not. But love is not always enough. No. But it is a start. We finished our lunch in something approaching companionship. When we parted on the sidewalk outside the restaurant, Lawrence did something that surprised me. He took my hand. Thank you. For raising my grandson. For being the mother he needed. For coming today, even though you had every reason to refuse. I did not know what to say. So I just nodded. I watched him walk away, this man who had once seemed so powerful and was now just another person trying to make peace with his past. Maybe we were not so different after all. Spring came to Boston slowly that year. The harbor ice melted. Trees budded along the waterfront. The city shook off winter and turned its face toward warmth. I had been in Boston for 6 months. Caleb was thriving at Aldridge Development, earning respect on his own merits rather than riding on his father's name. Vincent and I had achieved a stable equilibrium, polite and functional if not warm. And then one evening, everything shifted. I was in my apartment reviewing blueprints when my phone rang. Vincent's name on the screen. Margot. I need you to come to the hospital. The world tilted. What happened? Is Caleb? He is fine. It is Lawrence. He had a heart attack an hour ago. I was in a car within minutes. The hospital was the kind of place where wealth bought privacy. Lawrence had a private suite on the top floor, surrounded by the best doctors money could secure. When I arrived, I found Caleb in the hallway, his face drawn with worry. Mom. He hugged me tightly. They are saying it was severe. They do not know if he will make it. Where is Vincent? Inside with him. Should I go in? Caleb looked at me with an expression I could not read. He asked for you. Lawrence. When he was conscious. He kept saying your name. I found Vincent standing beside his father's bed, looking at monitors that beeped and flashed with a particular rhythm of medical crisis. Lawrence was pale against the white sheets, tubes, and wires connecting him to machines that were keeping him alive. Vincent looked up when I entered. His face was a mask of controlled fear. He is stable. For now. But they do not know how much damage was done. Caleb said he was asking for me. He was. Before they sedated him. He kept saying he needed to tell you something. I moved to the other side of the bed, looking down at this man who had shaped so much of my life without ever knowing me. His eyes were closed, his breathing shallow. What could he possibly need to tell me? I do not know. Vincent's voice was exhausted. But he was insistent. Whatever it is, it seemed important to him. We sat with Lawrence through the night. Caleb came and went, bringing coffee, making phone calls, doing the practical things that needed doing. Vincent and I remained on opposite sides of the bed, Two people connected by the man between us. Toward dawn, Lawrence opened his eyes. Vincent. His voice was barely a whisper. I am here, Father. Margot. She is here too. Lawrence turned his head slowly, finding me with his gaze. I need to tell you. His words came with effort. What I should have said. Years ago. Rest. You can tell me later. No. He gripped my hand with surprising strength. I need you to know. Why I did it. The ultimatum. All of it. Lawrence. I was afraid. His eyes were wet. Of losing control. Of watching my son become someone I could not understand. But there was something else too. Something I never told anyone. Vincent leaned closer, listening. I loved someone once. Lawrence's voice cracked. Before I married your mother. A woman my family did not approve of. They gave me the same choice I gave you. The company or her. I did not know that. Vincent's voice was strained. I chose the company. I let her go. And I spent the rest of my life wondering what would have happened if I had chosen differently. He turned back to me, his grip on my hand tightening. When you left, when you made the choice for Vincent that I wished someone had made for me, I understood. I hated you for it, but I understood. You were trying to spare him what I had suffered. I was trying to protect him. I know. And I am sorry. For all of it. For creating the situation that made you feel you had no other option. His eyes fluttered closed. The machines beeped steadily. A doctor appeared in the doorway, checking monitors, adjusting medications. He needs rest. The doctor said it gently. He is stable, but he needs quiet. We stepped into the hallway. Vincent and I stood facing each other, the weight of what we had just heard hanging between us. I did not know. Vincent said quietly. About my father. About his past. Neither did I. It does not change what happened. But it explains some things. Maybe. Or maybe it just shows that pain repeats itself. Generation after generation. We can break that pattern. Vincent's voice was stronger now. With Caleb. We can be better than our parents were. Are we though? Being better. We are trying. That is more than they did. I looked at this man I had loved, this man I had hurt, this man I was still learning how to exist alongside. Vincent. There are things I have wanted to say for months. Things that I have been afraid to say because I did not want to push. But I do not know how much time we have. Lawrence just reminded me of that. Say them. I drew a breath. I loved you. 23 years ago, I loved you more than I thought it was possible to love someone. And leaving you was the hardest thing I have ever done. I told myself I was being selfless, but the truth is, I was terrified. Terrified that if I stayed, you would eventually see me as a burden. Terrified that your father was right, that I would ruin everything you were building. So I ran. Vincent was silent, listening. And when I found out I was pregnant, I should have told you. I know that now. I knew it then, somewhere deep down. But I had already left, and you had already moved on, and telling you felt like trying to rebuild a bridge I had already burned. You assumed I had moved on. You did not actually know. I saw the engagement announcement. You and Helena. That engagement was a surrender, not a choice. When you left, I did not know what to fight for anymore. My father said I would lose everything if I did not comply, and without you, everything did not seem worth keeping. The words hit like a revelation. 23 years of believing Vincent had chosen his family's expectations over us. 23 years of convincing myself I had been right to leave. And it had all been built on a misunderstanding. I am sorry. I said it with everything I had. I am sorry for leaving. I am sorry for not trusting you. I am sorry for the 23 years you lost with your son. I am sorry for all of it. Vincent was quiet for a long moment. I am sorry too. He said it slowly, like the words cost him something. For not fighting harder. For not finding you no matter how well you hid. For letting my father's ultimatum determine the course of my life. You were young. We both were. That is not an excuse. It is an explanation. And I am done letting the past excuse the present. What does that mean? It means I am tired of being angry. I am tired of punishing you and punishing myself and watching our son try to hold both of us together. It means I want to find a way to actually move forward. Not just coexist. Not just tolerate each other. Actually move forward. I did not dare to hope. I had given up hoping months ago. What would that look like? I do not know yet. But maybe we can figure it out together. He held out his hand. Not a romantic gesture. Not a reconciliation. Just an offer. A beginning. I took it. Lawrence survived. The heart attack had done damage, but not as much as the doctors had feared. He spent 3 weeks in the hospital, then another month in rehabilitation, growing stronger slowly but steadily. During his recovery, something changed between all of us. Caleb visited his grandfather daily, reading to him, talking about work, building the relationship they had only just begun. Vincent spent more time with his father than he had in years, having the conversations they had avoided for decades. And I became part of the constellation. Not at the center, but no longer on the outside. Vincent and I had dinner together. Just the two of us. Not for business. Not for Caleb. Just two people who had once loved each other, trying to figure out if they could love each other again. It was awkward at first. We did not know how to be with each other without the buffer of our son or the excuse of professional obligation. We stumbled over topics, retreated into silence, started over. But gradually, something began to emerge. We talked about the years between. His marriage to Helena, her death, the emptiness that followed. My career, my struggles, the loneliness I had never admitted to anyone. We talked about Caleb, his childhood, the milestones Vincent had missed. We talked about the future, cautiously, without making promises neither of us was ready to keep. I do not know where this goes. Vincent said one evening, over dinner at a quiet restaurant near the harbor. I do not know if we can rebuild what we had. Maybe we should not try to rebuild it. Maybe we should build something new instead. What would that look like? I do not know. But I would like to find out. It was not a declaration. It was not a commitment. It was just an opening. A door left slightly ajar. And for the first time in 23 years, I walked through it. The first anniversary of the revelation arrived on a warm Saturday in August. Caleb insisted on marking it. A dinner at Vincent's house, just the three of us. He called it a celebration of family, though I was not sure any of us felt like celebrating. I arrived at 7 with a bottle of wine and the particular nervousness that came from not knowing what role I was supposed to play. Mother of the guest of honor. Former lover of the host. Something in between. Vincent answered the door himself. He was wearing the casual clothes I had come to know, the version of himself he only showed to people he trusted. Come in. Caleb is in the kitchen, pretending he knows how to cook. He learned from me. Which means we should be worried. Vincent smiled. An actual smile, not the polite social expression he used for business functions. It transformed his face in ways I remembered from decades ago. Thank you for coming. Thank you for inviting me. We stood in the doorway, not quite touching, the space between us charged with things unsaid. This past year. Vincent started, then stopped. I could not read his expression. It has been the most difficult and the most meaningful of my life. Mine too. I know I have not made it easy for you. The anger, the distance. I needed time to process everything, and I did not always process it gracefully. You had every right to be angry. Maybe. But I also had a choice about what to do with that anger. I could have held on to it forever. Let it poison everything good that was trying to grow. But you did not. No. He met my eyes. I did not. We moved into the living room. Caleb appeared from the kitchen, wearing an apron and wielding a spatula. I hope you both like pasta, because that is all I know how to make. Did your mother teach you? She tried. I mostly learned from YouTube. We laughed. The three of us, together, laughing about something small and ordinary. It felt like a miracle. Dinner was simple but good. Caleb had made spaghetti with a sauce he claimed was his own recipe but which I recognized as my mother's. We ate and talked and existed together as something resembling a family. After dinner, Caleb excused himself. I need to make a call. He said it with the particular casualness that suggested he was deliberately giving us privacy. I will be upstairs. He disappeared before either of us could object. Vincent and I sat in the living room, coffee cups cooling on the table between us. He is not subtle, Vincent observed. He gets that from you. From me. You were the one who always said exactly what she was thinking. I said exactly what I wanted you to hear. That is not the same thing. No. I suppose it is not. Silence stretched between us. But it was a different kind of silence than it had been a year ago. Less heavy. More waiting. Margot. Vincent set down his cup and turned to face me directly. I need to tell you something. You can tell me anything. This past year, I have been trying to figure out how to feel about you. I kept expecting the anger to come back. Kept waiting for something to remind me of everything you took from me. But it never did. Maybe you just got tired of being angry. Maybe. Or maybe I realized that being angry was not accomplishing anything. It was not giving me back the years I lost with Caleb. It was not changing the past. It was just making the present harder. I held my breath, afraid to interrupt. I loved you. Vincent's voice was quiet. 23 years ago, I loved you more than I had ever loved anyone. And when you left, I thought that love had died. I thought I had gotten over it, moved on, become someone who did not need you anymore. And now I realize I was lying to myself. The love did not die. I just buried it so deep I could pretend it was not there. Vincent. I'm not saying I am ready for anything. He held up a hand. I'm not saying I know where this goes or what it means. I am just saying that I do not want to keep pretending I feel nothing. Because I do feel something. I always have. I felt tears pricking at my eyes. I never stopped loving you. I said it quietly. I tried to. I told myself I had. But every time I looked at Caleb, I saw you. And every time I saw you in him, I remembered what we had and what I had given up. We sat in the silence of that admission. So what do we do now? Vincent asked. I do not know. Start over. Not from where we left off, but from here. From who we are now. That sounds terrifying. It is. But I think it might be worth it. Vincent reached across the space between us and took my hand. His fingers were warm, familiar in ways I had forgotten. One day at a time. One day at a time. I agreed. It was not a promise. It was not a commitment. It was just a beginning. But after 23 years of endings, a beginning felt like enough. 2 years later, I stood in Vincent's living room and watched our son get ready for his wedding. Caleb had met a woman named Elise during a project at work. She was an environmental consultant, passionate about sustainable development, exactly the kind of person he would fall in love with. They had dated for a year before he proposed, and she had said yes before he finished asking the question. Now our son was adjusting his tie in the mirror, looking nervous and happy and so much like his father that it made my chest ache. How do I look? Like you are about to make the best decision of your life. He smiled, that particular smile he had inherited from Vincent. I never thought I would have this. A family. Not just mom, but dad and grandpa and everyone. I never thought this would be my life. Neither did I. Caleb turned to face me. Thank you. For everything. For raising me. For telling Dad the truth. For not giving up when it would have been easier to run. I made a lot of mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. The point is what you do after. Vincent appeared in the doorway, looking distinguished in his suit. The car is here. Are we ready? Caleb took a breath. We are ready. The ceremony was small but beautiful. A garden venue, close friends, and family, the particular intimacy that came from keeping things personal. I sat beside Vincent in the front row, watching our son marry the woman he loved. At one point, Vincent took my hand. A small gesture, but one that carried the weight of everything we had been through. We had not remarried. We had not made grand declarations or public announcements. We had simply started choosing each other, day after day, building something new from the foundation of something old. It was not perfect. We still argued. We still carried scars from the years of distance. But we were together, and that was enough. After the ceremony, after the dancing and the toasts and the throwing of rice, Vincent and I stood on the edge of the garden and watched our son and his new wife leave for their honeymoon. He is happy. I said it softly. He is. Vincent's arm was around my shoulders. We did well. Did we? We raised a son who knows how to love. That is more than most parents can claim. I leaned into him, feeling the warmth of his body against mine. I still think about it sometimes. I admitted. The years we missed. The family we could have been. I do too. But I have stopped letting it define me. We have now. We have the future. That has to be enough. It was enough. Not because the past did not matter, but because the present mattered more. I thought about the woman I had been 25 years ago. Young and scared and certain that leaving was the only way to protect the man she loved. I thought about the decades of distance, the lies I told myself, the way I had built walls so high I almost forgot there was a world on the other side. And then I thought about now. This garden. This family. This man beside me who had every reason to hate me and had chosen something else instead. Vincent. Yes. I love you. He was quiet for a moment. Then he pressed a kiss to my forehead. I know. I love you too. It was not the ending I had imagined. It was better. Because it was not an ending at all. It was a continuation. A story that kept going, page after page, because we kept writing it together. The past was not erased. The wounds were not healed. But they were no longer bleeding. And that, I had learned, was the most any of us could hope for. Years later, I would tell this story to my grandchildren. 3 of them, eventually. Caleb and Elise's children, who called me Grandma and Vincent Grandpa and had no idea how close they came to never existing at all. I would tell them about love and loss and the terrible weight of secrets kept too long. I would tell them about their grandfather's company and their father's courage and the way sometimes you have to lose everything before you can build something real. And I would tell them this, that family is not just blood. It is choice. It is showing up, day after day, for the people who matter. It is forgiving when forgiveness seems impossible and trying when trying seems pointless and believing that the next chapter might be better than the last. Their grandfather was a billionaire CEO who spent 3 months working side by side with an intern without knowing he was his son. Their grandmother was a woman who loved too much and trusted too little and took 23 years to tell the truth. But their grandparents also found their way back to each other. Against all odds. Despite all evidence. Because in the end, love was not enough on its own, but love combined with choice and time and the willingness to try again, that was enough for everything. That was enough for a lifetime. The end.